Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. Happy Friday, happy Saturday, wherever you are in the world. This is USA Global TV and Radio. I'm Dr. JACALYN KERBECK, and I am thrilled and honored to be here today for another episode of the Listening Mentor Show. Our topic today is when life throws us curveballs. So we're going to discuss this topic with the star of our show. She's joining us from London. She's known as the Harley Street stress expert, and she can help you bust your stress. You can also see her here on our channel on Talking Heads on a Tuesday at 5 p.m. GMT or noon Eastern Time. And you can find her on A Woman's Prerogative here on our platform and also on E360 TV on a Monday at 7 p.m. GMT or 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Welcome, Caroline.heward, to the program. Hello.
Woo-hoo. What a very warm welcome. Gosh, I didn't realize I was there so much.
I was going through all the times in my head. I'm like, oh, time here and time there. It's so good to see you. And as you know, and anyone who's watched us, this is totally unrehearsed. We just come on here. We have a topic. You came up with this one, which I love. And then as a certified therapist, as someone who has decades of experience, you bring your knowledge, your expertise, and your passion in helping other people here onto our channel.
I sure do. And sometimes, Dr. JACALYN, you can be really on it. You can be really asking me some curveball questions.
I don't make it easy for you, do I? But, that's because you are the ultimate professional, Caroline. And, people do have issues in their life. They do have concerns. They do have things that are going on with them. And you are really able to just zip right into it and give people an idea of it's not hopeless. There's always something that we can do. And so before we begin with the topic, I want to spotlight you. How is it that you work with people? You're in London, but you work with people all over the world and you help them bust their stress. Can you break that down for us, please?
Yes. Thank you, Dr. JACALYN. Well, I do help people bust their stress in many different ways because it's very individual. It's individual for the person. So it's whatever is causing you problems, whether it's physical, emotional, mental, behavioral, whether you've got anxiety, stress, whether you've got physical ache and pain, whether it's relationship issues or anger management or bereavement issues. So we are all individuals and we all have our own stuff that we're having to handle. And I help you by identifying the root cause, using root cause therapy and chakra psychology to identify what started this particular pattern in the first place. And generally, and it's a very quick process, it can take you back almost to many years before or even childhood. It's a very quick process and it moves you from head to heart. It moves you from that anxiety, stress, physical, emotional ache and pain to a place of inner peace. I love doing the work that I do because it's very rewarding for me to witness what happens to the clients. I do a free consultation over the phone, on Zoom, on Skype, Messenger, audio, video, if you're camera shy. on the fame. You can reach me on nomorestress@live.co.uk to arrange and book in your session, or you can call me on +44 if you're international. If you're local, 07523 120 189.
Thank you so much, Caroline. You know, we have your new banner and it's so big, it was cutting off your face. It's like coming up to here. So we can't put it up when you're on Spotlight.
My apologies. I meant to put it in 2 bits. My apologies.
There's the information for anyone who wants to get in touch with you. So, Caroline, in some cases, at some times of our life, and I can say, yes, I'm raising my hand on this, we like everything to be very predictable. It's black, it's white, it's yes, it's no, it's nighttime, it's daytime. And then all of a sudden, something happens and things are not the way we're used to them being. We don't know what to do. Sometimes we get angry, sometimes we get depressed. So we could go on and on and on. When we move into the gray zone, and when it's not so black and so white, we might be more open to how to deal with curveballs. And I'm just throwing this out there. What are your thoughts as a certified therapist on this black and white and gray zone area?
It's a really, really powerful question, Dr. JACALYN. And my insightful answer to that is that everything happens, and it's usually about how we respond and how we react to it. So stuff happens, life happens, and we'll have taxes going up, for instance. We'll have the boiler breaking down, or needing a plumber and they can't get out till, sort of a week later, or we lose our broadband, or we have a situation as a family in terms of sickness. So all sorts of things happen, and we can't stop those. We have to handle those situations. And it's not always black and white. And it can be grey, because one person's perspective is not the same as 2 people's perspective, as the same as a group's perspective. And so we'll all be seeing it through our own filters. We will see situations and conversations and events through our own personal filters. So when one person might be thinking, this is the right answer and this is the right thing to do, another person will see it through their personal filters and see something different. What's right and what's wrong? Everybody's right according to how they see things. So nobody's wrong and nobody's right. The perspective that I wish to give is that it's about managing the practical, the logical, and the physical things, because that helps us move through a situation or a difficulty, and then to handle the emotions and feelings separately.
Caroline, I am so blown away by what you just shared. I absolutely love that, because you're not labeling anyone, and we do that. You're right, I'm wrong. It's all about control, and that control, it doesn't bring any value. And so I really appreciate what you just shared there. Something that I want to share is when I was in business in corporate, obviously I'm still in business as a business owner, but when I was in corporate, this gray zone came up for me very often. And what I mean by that is, being in sales, you're going out to deliver a solution, and the client told you that these were the issues, or this is what you researched. You interviewed people in the company and you found out their problem is this. I can fix this because I have this solution. And then all of a sudden, something changes. The decision maker left. They lost the budget. They have other priorities, all these things. You're like, no, you don't understand. I have this 65 slide PowerPoint deck, and I've got the proposal that you asked for. And that was a huge awakening for me. It started professionally, and then I could see it more personally. So if you think about what I just shared, how many people are in business are out there, they're like, yeah, I have to do this, I have to do that. And then all of a sudden, the blinders come off, and everything they were prepared for is blown away.
It's happened to me many times in corporate. and what's right from one person's perspective, especially in a business, is not necessarily how another person from the business in a different position will see it. And I certainly have been in that situation where I'd organised a proposal and it fitted exactly what their issues were, what they were focused on, and what that person's budget was. And then something changed in the company. There was a reorganisation and different people left. And because different people left and there was a reorganization, there was then different analogies of what was possible within the changed budget. And so what you're describing is that the budget changed and the person that was making the decision changed, and then their perspectives and their viewpoint as to what was possible is not what you presented, because you presented something for somebody else, and everybody likes to put their personal stamp on it.
It's so true. And, I've shared before that I'm a big reality TV fan. You and I were just talking about this yesterday. And when it comes to black and white, and when it comes to doing all the right things and getting the gold star, you know that I'm all about that. Do this, get the gold star, do that, get the gold star. And so something is coming up for me with reality TV. There are these programs on about, you just meet somebody or you don't even see them. You talk through a wall and then you start dating, then you end up getting together and you're in the same apartment for a month. And then you decide that day if you're going to get married to the person. You spend all this time you had to discuss it with them. You get up to the altar with all the family. They're on television and you say no. And I think to myself, wait, I don't understand. We just watched 6 weeks of this, and this. And then, but that's how life is. Even though we think we know it, we know him, we know her, we know the situation, we never really do. So we have to be prepared for curveballs. Is there a list of curveballs? And I'll tell you what I mean. Do you remember ever hearing about, I guess it was in New York City, a guy would wear this trench coat and he'd open it up and he'd have all these fake watches and he'd be like, hey. So is there like a list of curveball things that we should be open our coat and here they are?
Well, I think of a curveball as you're going along in your daily stuff and everything's ticking along really nicely and you're wandering through everything that you have to do personally, emotionally, in your business, in your friendships and in your work and in your family and in your relationships. And suddenly just something comes out and it hits you. And it might be something like somebody becomes ill, or it might be that there's a sudden bereavement, or it might be that there's a sudden change within the company that you're working for. Or it might be that you land up with a streaming cold. You go to bed and the next morning you wake up with a streaming cold. And I kind of think that these sorts of things are curveballs. But I also have landed up with a curveball where I'm doing my accounts, and I always leave everything to the last minute, as my accountant will attest. And then my printer breaks down. Something goes wrong with it. And then it's urgent, because I've left it all to the last minute and I've got to do everything on the weekend. And so I have to just drop everything and deal with whatever comes up. Sometimes, things happen like sort of a plumbing situation, and whatever you were doing, you just have to drop and deal with it and then pick up everything else. And this is what we do. We have to, because if we don't, we don't survive. And so essentially, I think a curveball it can be a personal curveball, it can be a professional one, it can be if you're an owner manager and you have your own small business and run it from home, that anything can happen, like your broadband can go down and then you can't make calls and I wouldn't be able to do TV shows. So that's what I mean by a curveball, that things just hit you and you've got to stop and do something to sort out that curveball.
Excellent examples. And the one that you just mentioned, I want to just look at that as an example and then explore it further. So I have a backup broadband for my system. And yesterday, the Wi-Fi went down. I couldn't get on my backup system. The show was still running, so nobody knew because I wasn't on the show. I was producing it. And I finally figured out a way through my phone to get back on and go back in and make everything happen. It was fine. Today, it went down again. I reset the router. And so I got back in with the second method. But my point is, how many backups do we have to have? So if we think to ourselves as a business owner, or let's say as a homeowner, it's possible that the toilet will get backed up and I have a plunger, I have a plumber's name, I have something. Well, if you can't get the plunger to work and you can't get the plumber on the phone because it's the weekend, what are you going to do then? How many backups, if you think of the jacket with the fake watches, how many different scenarios do you have to have? How many layers deep do you have to have for each curveball, especially when you don't know what they're going to be?
Well, I do have a spare toilet. I now have a second toilet in my new home.
I love it.
So if I need a backup,
there it is.
I've had sort of such a thing in terms of my electric shower has the cord has stopped working. So I do have a backup. I'm now in the bath with the over bath shower, which is not as hot, which is a bit disconcerting. But I still have a shower. I'm just spending less time in there. And I'm not using as much electric. And so I'm looking at all the positives out of the fact that I'm not in the electric shower. And so I'm not, it's not foolproof, but I'm not without. And when you are without, you just have to find other ways. So if I am, for instance, without the electric shower, I could have a bath. I could run some water in the bath and, sort of have a quick dip in the bath or have the over bath shower. So those are three areas. And, I have landed up with no hot water. And then that's really painful. And my backup is then having good insurance with a company that comes out very quickly. So because I can't be without the plumbing, I can't be without the washing machine not working, and I can't be without the computer not working. If there's a virus, then I have a contract with Microsoft, which is amazing, and they're there 24/7, any time of the day or night. So if something goes down on my computer, I have instant help, and I feel that that's what I do. I essentially look at if anything goes wrong, because I live on my own, I don't have a man to kind of do those things for me that might be technical, that might be, sort of good with the DIY and good with, sort of the plunger in the toilet. I have to sort it out all myself. So I do have those things to make sure that I'm able to keep going. And I also have two amazing neighbors too who will help me.
You have your own huge amount of artillery against curveballs. I love it. So, Caroline, what role does our mental perspective play when we get a curveball? So in other words, if you're stoic, and I'm just using that word as an example, if you're black and white, everything's black and white, it's my way, it's the highway, and it's yes, it's no, and a curveball comes, you're probably less likely to be able to kind of weave and bounce and move with it. If you think about a basketball court, right? And I don't play basketball, but you see the guy, he's coming down the court and you're thinking, I'm just going to go straight at him. Well, he's already weaving and he knows the court, right? But you have to adapt and be able to follow your man, the one you're supposed to be following on the court. So how does our mental acuity or our perspective tie in with curveballs?
This is where we can get highly stressed, really anxious, and sometimes for some people depressed. So if you haven't got the mental agility to be able to literally stop and deal with the curveball, and I do mean that literally, you almost have to stop and handle the situation. And I feel that, my mum is really good at that. And she's, my dad passed away many, many years ago. And I do admire my mum with the fact that she will just stop and she handles things that she has to handle. So if the window's broken or if something's happened with the sink and the tap, she has an arsenal of people that she can call, and she just manages it. And my mum is 80 now, and I think that, there is a way of managing, even if we are very, very stoic and very, sort of, it has to be this way, my way, or the highway. When you have that mental ability to step out of the emotion and then call on what's needed to handle and deal with the situation that you have to handle. And there's instances like the freezer, somebody might have switched off the freezer, and you just have to handle it. And if you don't, the response of not handling it is the fact that you'll end up stressed, anxious, or even to the point of depression. So my invitation is to handle whatever you need to physically, logically, and practically. And then if you are wanting to scream and shout and be really angry, to just kind of wait for a bit until you've sorted out the logical and practical things. And then you can be really angry about the amount of expense and time and effort that you've taken to sort it out.
So true. So true. I really feel like a lot of what we discuss on this show is really pertinent for so many people. Yet what I find is if you were to just talk to a person on the street about topics like what we're talking about, oh, I don't have any problems. No, my communication's fine. Like at a surface level, people don't want to admit that they are thrown off by curveballs, that they are feeling unheard, or they feel challenged, or they have stress. How many people will tell you, I'm not stressed? I'm not stressed. Right? And you're like, hello. I don't know what you are if you're not stressed out. But we don't want to look at ourselves from an authentic perspective. We want to put on a mask. And I think that that's in alignment and the foundation of even what we're talking about today with curveballs.
That's so true. The mask, the identities that we come from, we can be the daughter, the mother, we can be the girlfriend, the boyfriend, we can be the son, we can be the cousin, we can be the friend, we can be the business colleague, we can be the boss, and what happens is we wear all these different identities. And when you take away all the different identities and we literally unmask each one, something incredible happens. Many people don't know how they personally would respond because they're generally responding from a mask of identity of where they are at that moment in time.
Everything, and I love how you just said that everything is about a moment in time, but yet at the time we can't see it's a moment in time. It feels like it's forever. It feels like it will never end. Perfect example. And I have to say, knock on wood, here's some wood. I'm a very good sleeper and I sleep well. I get up, but I sleep really well. But how many times are there stories you hear people they lie there all night tossing and turning, and if I could only get a good night's sleep, and then at some point they realize that this is temporary. They will fall asleep. Typically, I'm not saying it happens with everyone, but even when something seems scary in the darkness, the light will come, God willing. The light will come, the sun will rise again. And I think if we keep it in those perspectives and then we look at what can we do to learn these skill sets and then the conditioning and what it is we need to do. Like we understand conditioning for our body, but what about our hearts and what about our minds?
The problem is when we're stressed and there's things going on that we're not handling, in our waking time, we have distractions. We have things that we're doing, either work or we're cooking or cleaning or doing something, we're out with friends. But essentially we have distractions. Even the phone is a modern day distraction. And what happens is when you go to bed, there is no distraction. There's just you, the bed, and sleep or no sleep. And so the mind is still going, the mind is still thinking and analyzing and working through stuff that you didn't handle during the daytime when you were in your waking time. And so whatever you didn't handle will be there still on the night, but there isn't the distraction to move you away from the thinking of the problems that you're still analysing and thinking about. My invitation on that is to handle the mind being busy and full. And one of the really simple things that you can do is to write everything down that's in your head. And when you write it down, it's almost like it empties the mind, and you put it on a piece of paper, a notebook, and just leave it by the side of your bed. And every time there's a thought that comes in, just write it down. It's almost like a way of emptying the mind so that the mind can feel rested, time to sleep.
Yes. It reminds me, there's a song, and I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It's A Time for Us. I think it's from Romeo and Juliet or something. Don't mark me for that, but it's like there's a time for sleep. There's a time to express. There's a time for us to communicate. And I feel that if we were able to really focus on each of these things and how important they are across our life, think about how important sleep is. It's vitally important. Think about how important it is to be able to know yourself, know what you need to be able to express yourself. And then think about how important your relationships are to be able to hear, to truly listen and be present and have the other person give you the same gift.
It's very true. And sometimes we don't consider the time that we need to do all those things. And what you've just described is things for ourselves. We tend to be thinking about tasks generally if the mind is busy, and things in our diary, the to-do list, but we still have to have almost the appointment with ourselves, for sleep, to eat, to just do nothing, just to literally be in a space of calm and rest and not need to be doing anything specific or particular. I mean, I actually now schedule time to cook. And when I don't schedule time to clean, then things don't get done, So it's very important that we do schedule time for ourselves to be in a diary moment with ourselves in terms of what we need to nourish our mind, our body, and our spirit.
Yes, it's so true. But we have to be open to it. And, something else that I want to talk about, because it's this time of year. And again, I just want to acknowledge, because sometimes people say, oh, Merry Christmas. Not everybody celebrates Christmas, right? People celebrate different holidays, but traditionally, in most parts of the world, again, big umbrella, asterisk, disclaimer, whatever. In most parts of the world, people will celebrate, observe, recognize something before the end of this year. And when that happens, from what I see, I live very close to a very large mall. I mean, the traffic is backed up. You get in there. I like to walk around the outside of the mall just to stay away from the chaos, but get the exercise. And the pressure people feel, I got to get him again. I got to get her. They're closing. Return. I mean, it's insane. And people stop listening to each other. So to me, I think, okay, I don't have to deal with any of that because I'm not giving gifts. Like, we've made some decisions in our family, which feel really good, take a lot of that pressure away. But if you are in a situation where you're getting together with family dinners and you're getting the gifts, maybe you're traveling, anticipate that it's not all going to go as planned. And for example, let's say you're flying. The flights are going to be late. Just say the flights are going to be late. That's how I say to myself, there's going to be a lot of traffic. Instead of leaving an hour early, why don't I leave 2 hours early? But people don't think about these things, and they get into this pattern of reacting. So what can you share about maybe something people can do differently?
Well, what you've described is very much stuff that you just have to handle, especially travel. And certainly at this time of year, and in the UK particularly, there is an awful lot of train and rail strikes where people have to arrange their journeys accordingly. And so then they can get stuck. And I used to, when I was much younger and when I was not really thoughtful about managing my stress, I would always arrive at the train station literally just before the train was going to go. And I was always stressed to get there because it was always by the skin of my teeth, and I always made my train. And I made a decision And I remember saying to myself, there must be an easier way to not have to be rushing like this. I know that it only takes 40 minutes, 30 minutes to actually get there. But say if there's a problem, say if there's a delay, say I have to wait for 5 minutes, then that makes everything short. So then I just allowed double the time. I allowed an hour to get to the train station. And it's, even though when I allowed that extra time, I was hanging around, it still felt like there was no stress and it felt less pressurized. And so it's about forward thinking, foresight of what you might need if there is any problems that you have to handle. You can't always have the foresight, but certainly if I'm going somewhere and I'm traveling a lot backwards and forwards for training courses, I now always allow much more time than the journey really needs so that I can cover myself for any eventualities in terms of any challenges that might occur with the transport. And that's because I don't drive. But even if I was driving, I think that's even worse because the roads can be very, very busy. Certainly in the UK, they can be like that. And then if you get hit with traffic, especially in the holiday season, then it becomes challenging because everybody's then in a car park. You're just sat in the traffic, in the queue, waiting and can't do anything. And so it's about your response to that rather than getting stressed about it and getting anxious about it. To just, I have this common phrase, and I say, well, it is what it is, and I can't do anything about it. So I have to just manage what it is. And if I call it I as is it, when I as is the situation, then I know that I don't have anything to respond to, because then it calms my stress down.
Excellent. I love what you're sharing because it comes from years of experience and then also embodying it yourself and demonstrating exactly what you've learned. I remember when I was in corporate and the last place that I worked, which I loved, they had this, I don't want to say it's a philosophy, but basically if you were going on a sales pitch and it was not where you live, so it's in another state, for example, you go in the day before. And initially I was kind of like, oh, I don't want to do it. I don't want to stay at the hotel, disrupt. But it made a lot of sense because if you're going to go in that day, any number of things can go wrong. And they do go wrong. But when you go in the night before, even though it might be pain in the neck or it might cost the company more money, you're there. You're present, you're ready to roll, and your competitors might not be. So I love what we're talking about today, that when you take the effort to be prepared and the curveball comes, you're not so emotionally, I'm going to use the word frail or emotionally unprepared that you can't deal with it. You might not even see it as a curveball.
Yeah, that's so true. I mean, I was in my corporate background, I was in marketing and PR. So I was always organizing events. And it was customary, if the event was happening on one day, that you would definitely go the day before to make sure that the team that you're working with, they're all briefed, everybody knows what's happening, if you have any deliverers coming. And it's almost like the pre-sequel before the event, to make sure that everything is okay for the event, because it might be a different team that's looking after your event, especially in corporate, especially if the event's on a weekend as well versus during the week. And when I found that when I did that, I almost had support, even more support than I thought I would have had if I'd have just arrived on the day and then found things not right, things not working. He doesn't know, she doesn't know what's happening because it's a different team. And I just feel that also gives the person that's organizing a greater amount of collaboration with the organization that they're holding the event with and the team, and you almost get much more support and encouragement from any challenges that occur from the company's team.
And you know what, Caroline? We could do an entire series of episodes about event management, because when you think about it, anything and everything can go wrong. And I'm not talking about it. You put together a wedding. Okay, of course, anything can go wrong. Like we said, maybe the person decides they're not going to say yes. But when you think about a corporate event, it comes to mind. I think I've shared it with you before, maybe when we first started, but I'm not going to go through the specifics, but just the high level, you got to be kidding me, is my client had an event. Our company was organizing the event, and it was somewhere outside the United States. And getting the attendees from the airport, there were two waves of attendees coming in, and the second group was coming in late at night, like the middle of the morning, and there had been a murder on the road from the airport to the hotel. There was one main road, and they shut it down. So aside from the person who ended up getting killed was a taxi cab driver, the people couldn't make it to get to the hotel. It took hours and hours. And then after they got there, it was one disaster after another. The power went out. There were restaurants. I mean, it went on and on and on. But yet our company, even though they didn't know this exact thing was going to happen, as a team, the event team came together and came up with a plan. And then they had a second plan, and the attendees didn't even know. They knew what was happening outside due to other factors, but all they saw was the event management company showed up at the highest level and showed care and concern for them. And I think that's what we're missing, is if we don't show people that we care, if we just react, well, that's not part of the deal, Caroline. You and I were talking about this, and now you're throwing that. Things happen, and you and I talk about this. Things happen. Just because it's this way today doesn't mean it has to stay that way.
Well, the other thing that I would say to that, because those kind of things can happen and they're outside of your control, is to then communicate, especially if it has an effect. Sort of if there's been a murder, then to alert the people that are there that we're very sorry. There's due to unforeseen circumstances outside of our remit, there has been some challenges that have created people not being able to get here because there has been a fatality. And it's almost like sort of when you say it, it then calms down the audience or the delegates to say, oh, right, okay, that makes sense. So I'm a big firm believer in communication, especially if there's only half the people there and everybody's wondering what's going on because they're already at the venue and not knowing what's going on outside. I had a situation when I was traveling in London. I had a big interview to go to, and I was stuck on the train. It was just outside Euston. I was stuck on the train at Euston for ages. I think I was there for about 45 minutes. So I got to my interview about an hour late, and I was absolutely anxious. I was kind of cussing and really, really quite upset, anxious and angry that I was stuck on this train, on this tube underground. So I couldn't even tell the people I was going to have the interview with. And when I finally got off there, I had to make a quick dart to the company, which was like a 10-minute walk or sort of literally hop, skip and a jump across to the company. And when I got there, I was very, very frazzled and said, I know I'm late. I'm sorry. I was stuck on a tube and there was no coverage and I don't know what's going on. And they never explained why. And if you don't want to interview me, that's okay. But, there was nothing I could do about it. And I just kind of laid it on the line very, very honestly that I knew that I was an hour late and that might upset their schedule. And the lady that I spoke to said, it's okay, don't worry, get yourself, we're going to get you a drink, go to the bathroom, get yourself straight, and then when you're ready, give us a call and we will see you. And I feel it was because I was genuinely, authentically honest. These things happen that were beyond my control. I'm really sorry. And now I'm here. That if you don't want to see me, that's okay. I get it. And because I gave everything very, very honestly, they were really happy to see me. And it was a really good interview.
Well, congratulations on that. And also, by the way, someone else might have just said, you know what, I'm late. There's no way they're going to see me. I'm not even going. I'm not going. I'm not calling. It wasn't meant to be. But not only did you show up and you gave the truth, you said, I understand if you're not going to interview me. You gave them the option. Instead of saying, well, I couldn't. You said, hey, you know what? It was out of my control, but I'm here and I get it. You might not have time now. You got a full schedule. It's later. And they were gracious because you were gracious to them. But that's not what always happens. And I think that people don't realize that when you show up, not you person, a person shows up angry, belligerent, giving a hard time, even with call centers, this happens so much. And by the way, I know I'm talking a lot today. I don't know why, but I'll just share this. I know when I call certain 800 numbers for service, like the cable company, I know it's going to be a long, painful process. And I've shared this before. So what I do now is, and I just had to do it the other day, I set aside an hour and a half that I plan on being on hold. I just call the number, press 1, press 2, dance around, spin, pray, whatever. And I just put the phone, there it is. And I'm on my computer working, knowing they're going to pop on, they're going to pop off. But what happens is people want service immediately. They don't plan for it. So they call the number expecting they're going to get, and as soon as the person, they start screaming. What kind of service are you going to get if someone is screaming at you?
Oh, that's one of my pet things, that is. And what I do is I do something similar to you. I've landed up having a shower, having lunch, sort of getting myself ready for a meeting and doing emails and taking calls on another call on another line. And then when I finally get through to them, I actually share with them, I've been holding here for 90 minutes and I've managed to do all these things. And I usually get a laugh. And I says, because I know that you're busy. I know that this is a service that is always where I have to hold. So I just plan when I'm calling you to do other things so I don't get stressed when I actually call you, when I actually finally get through to the person. And it's met with a really raucous laugh. And they've often said, do you mind if we share that with other people that call? And it's because by the time that they've picked up your call, they have no idea that you've been holding that length of time. And so if you're shouting and screaming at them because you've been holding, that's the person that's picked up your call. And they have no idea in the background what the process was of you holding. And so that's the person that's ready to help you. And if you shout and scream at them, they're not going to be as comfortable to help you in the same way as if you just share something whimsical like I have. And then it makes them laugh, and then they're much more akin to help you.
Excellent. Excellent. I love that. And something else that I want to share that I've incorporated into my process when I'm calling them, it's also with the company that publishes my books, nameless but begins with an A. It's very challenging to get an actual person on the phone. It's usually a chat bot or something. But anyway, what I do now is, and I think it cuts through a lot of time. Caroline, thank you so much for taking my call today. I know that you're not aware of what my issue is, so I'm not going to bore you, but do you have the ability as a supervisor to do X, Y, and Z, which is what I need done right now? But I don't know. Let me get some information about your Caroline. I'll give the information, but do you have the ability to do X, Y, and Z? Eventually you're going to answer me. You're going to say, no, I don't. And I'll say, you know what? I don't want to waste your time. I know you have to validate my account. Can you just pass me on to the next person so you and I don't have to have this? And usually they're very happy. They're like, yeah, thank you. Thanks. But I do it in a respectful manner. What do you think about it?
It's a process, isn't it? They're going through their process. I find it really, I smiled because I so get it. They have to go through and a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 before they can actually answer your query. And they won't answer your query until they've validated your account, until they've done what they need to do. And I think that must be the way that their customer service and customer support works. that they won't go into it. So sometimes you can be there for 5 minutes while they take you through their process before they can answer your question. And then when you find that they can't answer it, it is frustrating. And I just, one of my responses to that is that I usually say, I get you have a process. So can we just move through it quickly so that I can have my query dealt with?
Yeah, absolutely. What I think is funny about the process is, as you say, process, which I like much better, is it doesn't make sense to me why they have to authenticate you. Every single person that you speak to, they have to authenticate your social security number, your date of birth. And I think to myself, there must be somewhere in their chain of technology that it's not secure. Because if it were secure and it was a handoff, why would they need to keep checking it? So that gives me a little kind of like, well, I don't know what's going on, but they're the cable company. So other than getting a huge dish put outside, you have dishes there too, right?
Yeah, we do. I don't like the dishes.
Yeah.
I actually
Nice
have a
dish. Yeah, you like it? There it is.
I don't like them. I think they look very ugly. So I've never had a dish.
You're dishless.
I just have a box in the living room, which is a router with sort of pretty lights on it that does my Wi-Fi. I feel, and it's a really good comment that you've made about the authentication and the security, is that I've gone through that with my bank on occasions. And they've checked and checked and checked, and each time if there's different departments that they're putting me through to. And rather than getting frustrated, because it's a very frustrating situation when it's the fourth person you're speaking to, and then you have to go through your security check again, which is really, really frustrating. And sometimes I've actually said, for the fourth time, here is my details, and I do then kind of move through that and say, well, at least I know my account will be safe. At least, from this experience, I know it'd be very hard for a scam or a con artist to access my account if you put this many checks in place. So from that perspective, I kind of calm down a little bit and think, well, if there was somebody trying to scam and get into my account, that it wouldn't be that easy for them.
So true. So true. I just want to end with this because I think this is kind of it's kind of funny and it's also telling. I recently had to call some customer service number and they didn't have a very good process. And I found myself, embarrassed to even say, I found myself, pressing 0 and 0 and 0 and not going anywhere. And I'm like, agent, this is me, agent, representative, like agent, represent, screaming at the phone as though something is going to happen. And then I just started laughing. And I was like, if you want this on video, you have got to get a hold of yourself. You're not getting it. And then I love when they say, this call may be monitored for training purposes. Like, there's another one. She just had a breakdown.
I've done the same thing myself. You just have to work round, it's a curveball, isn't it? You have to work round their system of going through all the different digits and all the different, electronic messages. Sometimes you can be there for 5 minutes. I'm sure they must get paid for that call. You're hanging on for 5 minutes and going through all their different messages. But, I've also used that agent, but it's almost like if they don't hear it, because it's AI, isn't it? It's a robotic process, a computer process. And if you kind of don't press the right buttons or say the right thing, or they don't actually understand what you've said, it's very easy to be in that cycle of the automated robotic responses for ages. And one of the people that I land up with that is eBay, when I've called them up and they keep changing their process, which drives them demented. But when I finally get through or work out the new way of getting through to their customer service, I think, yes, and now next time I'll be able to do it quicker. But, this is the age that we're in, the age of technology, the age of AI, and things are moving at a much faster pace than it used to move. And things are changing and processes are changing all of the time. And I sometimes think, we're going forward 3 steps, but backward 2 steps. And so you kind of have to relearn how each company is processing their inquiries.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. And I'll just leave with this as we're running late, which is because I was late. I apologize. But I do know that my website provider, I've done some research and I've made some friends there, and I found out that certain hours during the day they do not have a human being working. It is all done by artificial intelligence, and that people are working from their homes. So they're not actually in an office anymore. And then they turn on when they're available. And then when they're not, they're not. So now I know when to call, because I know, and I appreciate the person telling me that. But many companies have gone to this remote operation. And by the way, I worked for AT&T for 10 years, a zillion years ago, but we were selling at the time automated attendance. We were going into companies saying, automate what you're doing. You don't need this person. You don't need that person. Press 1, press 2. And now all these years later, all we want is a human being to talk to. And I'll just give you another quick example. It used to be, because I was in cosmetics on the side for years, it used to be, I don't know how it is there, you would go to a cosmetics counter in a department store and someone would approach you, and then they'd sit you in the chair and they'd do whatever. Well, now a number of the cosmetic companies have gone to this open air footprint where you can just go and pick up your own products and take them and swipe them and go and never interact with a human being. It's kind of interesting.
Oh, sad. Sometimes I feel it's progress, and sometimes I feel, we're missing the human element. We're missing the humanness of our society and our culture. And I don't rate that. I love the human interaction.
I think what's nice is if there's an option, there's an opportunity. But Caroline, my dear, it's time to go. I'm going to put the giant banner across your face right now. How can people get in touch with you?
This way. I should have split it up. My apologies for that. But at least you've got everything there. You can get in touch with me by email, nomorestress@live.co.uk, or call me on +44 if you're international. If you're local, 07523 120 189. I offer a free consultation for 30 minutes on either Zoom, Skype, Messenger, video. If you're camera shy, by call. Email me and let's set it up. And I look forward to helping you bust your stress.
Bust your stress, bust your stress. One day we're going to be singing it to the actual recording. All right, we are signing off. I have so much fun seeing you, my friend. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed this episode. Have a beautiful weekend. I'm sure we'll be in touch. And right now we're going over to coexistence and sustainability with pet psychic Amina. So thanks so much for being here. We'll see you all again shortly. Bye for now.
Bye-bye, everyone. Bye-bye.